Tonight, we travel back nearly 2,000 years to a time when a mysterious city rose in the highlands of central Mexico, a city unlike anything the world had ever seen. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a wide, fertile valley surrounded by distant mountains, the air thin but clear. The year is somewhere in the 1st century CE. You are standing on soil that has been farmed for generations, but now something bigger is happening. Thousands of people are gathering here, hauling stones, digging canals, laying out streets with ropes and wooden stakes. They are not slaves. They are not building for a single king or tyrant. They are working together, following a plan so vast and so precise that even today it amazes researchers. This is Teotihuacan, though we don't actually know what its people called it. The name we use comes from the Aztecs, who arrived here more than 1,000 years later and were so awestruck by the ruins that they called it the City of the Gods. But right now, there are no ruins, only a vision. The streets are being laid out in a perfect grid, something completely unique in Mesoamerica at this time. The main avenue is massive, over a mile long, and it doesn't point to north like you might expect. Instead, it's aligned precisely 15.5 degrees east of true north, pointing toward the rising of the Pleiades or the passage of the sun on certain important days. This wasn't just a city, it was a cosmic diagram, a place where the heavens and the earth were meant to be connected. Imagine the sound, stone hammers striking, people shouting to each other, the rumble of wooden carts carrying huge blocks. Slowly, temples begin to rise along the avenue. At the center, workers begin piling up a massive pyramid, one of the largest ever built in the ancient world. We call it the Pyramid of the Sun. It is nearly as tall as a 20-story building, built almost entirely by hand, with no metal tools or draft animals. And this pyramid is not just for show. Deep underneath it lies a strange cave, shaped like a four-leaf clover, where perhaps the city's founders believed the world began, a sacred womb of creation. Above ground, the pyramid's flat top may have served as a stage for rituals visible to tens of thousands of people. To the north, another pyramid is built, the Pyramid of the Moon, echoing the shape of the mountains behind it. To the south, an elaborate temple decorated with carved serpents and seashells is constructed, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Archaeologists would one day find dozens of sacrificial burials inside, warriors and animals carefully arranged as offerings. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For now, the city is young, alive, full of energy. People are arriving from all over central Mexico, from Oaxaca, Michoacan, Veracruz. Each group brings its own language, its own rituals, its own foods and styles of clothing. Yet they are all drawn to this place, this great experiment, this vision of a city built on cooperation and cosmic order. Walk through the growing neighborhoods. You would see apartment compounds, yes, actual apartment blocks, with rooms arranged around open courtyards. These are not shacks or huts. They are solid, stone-built homes, and most families have one. In fact, nearly 80 or 90% of the city's population lives in these compounds. It is one of the first true urban societies in the Americas, and it is surprisingly egalitarian. This is not a city of starving peasants serving a small elite. It is a city of craftsmen, traders and farmers working together. Many compounds are organized around a single craft: obsidian blade making, pottery, textiles. Teotihuacan's obsidian workshops are especially famous, producing razor-sharp tools and weapons that are traded all across Mesoamerica. The population is growing fast, maybe 100,000 people, maybe 200,000 at its peak, making it one of the largest cities on Earth at the time, rivaling Rome, Alexandria, and Chang'an. Stand in the middle of the Avenue of the Dead at dusk. The air smells of burning copal incense. The setting sun turns the stones orange and gold. Somewhere a conch shell trumpet sounds, summoning people to a ceremony. The whole city seems to hold its breath as torches are lit along the plazas. Here, religion is everywhere. The Teotihuacanos worship a pantheon of gods: a great goddess of fertility and rain, a fierce storm god who brings both life and destruction, and the old fire god who keeps the sacred flame burning. Massive public rituals are held to keep the cosmic order intact. Priests wearing elaborate masks and costumes climb the pyramids, burn offerings, and maybe even perform sacrifices, all to keep the balance between heaven and earth. At night, the city glows with firelight. Imagine standing on the pyramid and looking out over the grid of streets, the countless little courtyards, each with its own fire. It must have looked like a constellation of stars on the earth. This is a city at its height, powerful, organized, united by belief and purpose. But like all great cities, its story will not stay bright forever. The city of Teotihuacan is no longer just a construction site. It has become a living, breathing world of its own. By the 2nd century CE, the streets are lined with fully built apartment compounds, temples, markets, and workshops. It is a place of endless motion, color, and noise. Step into one of the neighborhoods. Each one has its own identity. There's a Zapotec barrio, where people from Oaxaca speak their native tongue and worship their ancestral gods. Nearby is a compound full of people from the Gulf Coast, who decorate their walls with seashell patterns. There are Maya merchants living here too, bringing exotic goods like cacao and quetzal feathers. Teotihuacan has become a melting pot, a rare cosmopolitan hub in an ancient world where most people live in small villages. You can hear dozens of languages as you walk down the streets. Children run between doorways. Women carry baskets of maize and beans. The smell of roasted chili and chocolate drifts through the air. Every courtyard has its own little shrine, where families leave offerings of flowers, food, and incense. Inside the apartment compounds, life is surprisingly comfortable. Rooms are plastered and painted with bright murals. Some show gods and mythic animals, jaguars, birds, serpents, while others show everyday life, musicians, dancers, beasts. The walls are full of color. Archaeologists would later call this the painted city, because so much of it was once covered in vivid artwork. Each compound works like a tiny village. Several families live together, sharing kitchens, storage rooms, and a central courtyard. Most people here are not elite. They are artisans and farmers, yet they live with a sense of stability and dignity that is unusual for the ancient world. It's estimated that over 80% of the city's population lived in these well-built homes, a level of equality rarely seen in early civilizations. Walk through the markets and you'll see the city's lifeblood in action. Traders lay out piles of obsidian blades so sharp they can slice hair. Potters shape delicate vessels on simple turntables. Textile workers dye fabrics in bright reds and blues. The sound of hammers, chatter, and bargaining fill the air. And all the while, religion is everywhere. Temples rise from every district. Priests lead daily rituals to the great goddess, the storm god, and the fire god. Public plazas fill with processions of masked dancers, their costumes made of feathers, shells, and shimmering mirrors. Smoke from burning copal drifts into the blue sky. This is what makes Teotihuacan so remarkable. It is not ruled by a single king. No royal palaces, no tombs of great rulers have ever been found here. Instead, it seems to be governed by councils, perhaps a coalition of powerful families or priestly leaders. It's a city run not by fear, but by shared purpose. At night, when the torches are lit, the city glows like a constellation of stars on the earth. From the top of the Pyramid of the Sun, you can see the light stretching for miles. It feels eternal, indestructible. But nothing is eternal. Even now, beneath the surface of this prosperity, small cracks are forming. Resources are stretched thin as the population climbs. Rivalries grow between elite families. But for now, the people don't see it. They are living in one of the greatest cities the world has ever known, and they believe it will last forever.
Religion is the glue that holds Teotihuacan together. Every stone, every street, every wall is part of a sacred design. The people believe their city mirrors the cosmos itself, and their rituals keep the universe in balance. Step into the Ciudadela, a massive, sunken plaza surrounded by high walls. Tens of thousands of people can gather here. Today, a great ceremony is underway. Priests in towering feathered headdresses walk in procession. The crowd kneels as incense smoke curls into the air. Drums pound in slow, heavy rhythm, echoing off the stone. At the center stands the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, its facade carved with rows of fierce serpent heads, each with a jewel-like eye. Archaeologists would one day find over 100 skeletons buried under its foundations, warriors sacrificed to dedicate this sacred space. To the Teotihuacanos, death is not an end. It is a payment to keep the cosmic order intact. Religious life is everywhere. On the street, you pass murals of the great goddess, her arms outstretched, water and seeds flowing from her hands. She brings rain, fertility, and abundance. In another plaza, offerings are made to the storm god, a terrifying figure with goggle eyes and fangs. He brings the life-giving rains, but if angered, he brings destruction. The old fire god is different. He is ancient, older than this city, older even than writing. He squats cross-legged, holding a brazier on his head. You see his image everywhere, in homes, on incense burners, carved into doorways. He symbolizes continuity, the eternal flame that keeps life going. Religion here is not separate from daily life. It is daily life. Farmers time their planting to the movements of Venus. Builders align their temples to the sun. Rulers consult oracles before making decisions. Even the city's grid itself, that perfect layout of streets and compounds, may be meant to represent the four corners of the universe. This deep spiritual order gives the city a kind of stability, but it also creates pressure. The priests must constantly prove that their rituals work. If the rains fail or the crops die, the people will question the gods and the priests who speak for them. For now, though, the system works. The fields are green, the markets are full, and the city thrives. But balance is a fragile thing, and Teotihuacan's balance will not last forever. The decline does not come suddenly. It begins as a whisper. Around the year 500 CE, the rains grow unreliable. One year they come late. The next year they barely come at all. The springs that feed Teotihuacan's canals start to run dry. The soil hardens and cracks. Farmers watch their maize wither in the fields. People bring more offerings to the storm god, but the sky stays empty. At first, life goes on. The elites insist that the rituals will work. Priests organize even larger ceremonies, hoping to restore the city's luck. But the drought continues. The markets grow quieter. Food becomes more expensive. Families begin to leave, slipping away to smaller villages where water is still reliable. Inside the city, tension rises. The population may still be over 100,000, but it is restless. The sense of unity that once defined Teotihuacan begins to fray. Rival factions among the elite compete for power. Some neighborhoods start to fortify their compounds, building walls as if preparing for conflict. Meanwhile, the priests are losing credibility. Their whole authority depends on their ability to maintain the cosmic order, to make the rains come, to make the earth fertile. Now, with the sky refusing to cooperate, people start to whisper, maybe the gods have abandoned the city. Then come the earthquakes. Teotihuacan sits in a seismically active region. Archaeologists have found signs of powerful quakes that struck around this time. Buildings crack, walls shift out of alignment. Massive stone blocks are jolted loose. One distinctive type of damage, called floating, dipping, broken corners, appears across the city, caused by buildings twisting violently during quakes. Imagine it, the ground trembling beneath the Great Pyramids, stone facades crumbling, crowds screaming as chunks of masonry crash to the plaza floors. For a people who believed their city mirrored the universe, this must have felt like the cosmos itself was collapsing. The drought, the famine, the earthquakes, each on their own might have been survivable. Together, they create a perfect storm. And beneath it all, the fragile social contract is unraveling. Whispers turn to anger. Anger turns to fire. And soon, the city of the gods will burn. It begins quietly. A few isolated riots, a handful of burned buildings. But soon, the violence spreads like fire through dry grass. Hunger sharpens everything. The drought has dragged on for years now. People are desperate. Fights break out in the markets over food. The once orderly streets echo with shouts and smashed pottery. The elite compounds, once centers of luxury and authority, become targets. Groups of armed men storm through the streets, breaking down doors, looting storerooms. They set fire to the painted murals, to the carved lintels, to the wooden beams holding the roofs. The flames leap into the night, and black smoke curls above the city. Archaeologists have found clear evidence of this destruction. Buildings in the ceremonial core, temples, palaces, administrative complexes, were burned in a wave of coordinated attacks. But strangely, the common residential compounds were left untouched. This was not an invasion from outside. This was an uprising from within. Imagine standing on the Avenue of the Dead as it happens. The pyramids still rise above you, but the air is filled with smoke. The great plazas are littered with broken statues. The cries of priests are drowned out by the roar of fire and the crash of falling stone. For centuries, Teotihuacan's people believed their city was eternal. Now, they are tearing it down with their own hands. This moment marks the breaking of the old order. The council government, if that's what it was, collapses. The priesthood loses its power. Whatever unity once bound this city together has disintegrated. Teotihuacan is no longer the city of the gods. It is just a city, burning itself to ash. The fires eventually die. The smoke clears. What's left is a hollowed-out shell of a city. Teotihuacan does not vanish overnight. People still live here, at least for a time. But everything has changed. The temples lie in ruins. The central government is gone. Trade networks break apart. The city's population plunges. From over 100,000 people at its peak, it may fall to only a few tens of thousands. The surviving residents cluster into smaller districts. The old apartment compounds, once full of families and workshops, grow quiet. Murals fade. Courtyards fill with weeds. Chickens scratch where children used to play. There are no more grand ceremonies, no more processions of masked dancers, no more booming drums echoing down the plazas. Religion becomes smaller, more personal. People leave offerings at tiny household shrines, praying just for their family's survival, not the order of the cosmos. For outsiders, Teotihuacan loses its magnetism. The merchants from distant regions stop coming. The trade in obsidian blades, once the city's economic engine, collapses. Caravans pass the ruins by and choose other routes. Slowly, quietly, people drift away. Families pack their few possessions and leave the silent streets behind. They scatter into the countryside, to villages where water still flows and the earth still yields crops. By the mid-6th century, Teotihuacan is no longer a city. It is a ghost of one. Picture it now. The Great Pyramids still stand, but the plazas are empty. The wind howls down the Avenue of the Dead, carrying dust and the faint smell of ash. Crumbling walls lean at odd angles. Roof beams have rotted away. Lizards sun themselves on the cracked steps of once sacred temples. The only movement is the circling of vultures high above. The silence is almost unbearable. This was once one of the largest cities on Earth, as big as Rome, as complex as Alexandria, and now it is nothing but ruins and echoes. Time is relentless. Rains erode the murals. Roots push through the plaster walls. The people who once built and ruled this city are gone, and even their names are lost. We don't know what they called themselves. We don't know what they called their gods. We don't even know what they called their own city. All we have are stones. Beautiful, haunting, silent stones. Centuries will pass like this. For generation after generation, the ruins sit abandoned. Farmers plant fields around them. Travelers skirt their edges, wary of the ghosts said to wander the pyramids at night. Teotihuacan becomes a place of mystery, feared as much as it is forgotten. Nearly 1,000 years later, the silence is broken. Around the 1400s, the Aztecs, the rising empire of central Mexico, stumble upon the ruins of Teotihuacan. They are stunned. They have never seen anything like it. The pyramids rise like mountains. The Avenue of the Dead stretches farther than their eyes can follow. The sheer scale of it all is almost incomprehensible. To the Aztecs, this cannot be the work of mere humans. They decide it must be the place where the gods gathered to create the sun and the moon. They call it Teotihuacan, which means the place where the gods were born. Aztec emperors make pilgrimages here. Even the mighty Montezuma comes to walk among the silent stones. He orders offerings to be placed at the pyramids, honoring the unknown builders as divine ancestors. By this time, the city is overgrown with grass and shrubs. The pyramids are weathered, their plaster long gone, their stairways crumbling. But to the Aztecs, that only makes them more sacred. This is not a ruined city.
It is a holy relic. The Aztecs leave their own offerings here, but they do not rebuild the city. They cannot. No one can. The knowledge that built Teotihuacan is gone forever, scattered like dust on the wind. When the Spanish arrive in the 1500s, they too are amazed. But unlike the Aztecs, they are not awed. They are curious. They dig, they sketch, they write down what they see. And then they strip away anything of value: stone blocks, ornaments, artifacts. Teotihuacan becomes a quarry, a curiosity, a ruin to be picked apart. Yet, even as it is dismantled, its mystery endures. No one can explain who built it. No one knows why it fell. The questions gnaw at every visitor who walks its silent streets. How could something so vast, so powerful, simply disappear? Over the centuries, explorers and archaeologists return again and again. They uncover murals, skeletons, artifacts, but the answers remain elusive. The people of Teotihuacan left no written records. Their voices are gone. We are left only with fragments, enough to know their greatness, but not enough to understand it fully. And maybe that is why Teotihuacan still captures the imagination, because it is incomplete. It refuses to explain itself. It stands as a riddle in stone. Today, Teotihuacan is one of the most visited archaeological sites in the Americas. Tourists walk the Avenue of the Dead. They climb the Pyramid of the Sun and look out over the valley. They take photos, they smile. And yet, if you stand very still, you can still feel it. The weight of history pressing down from the silent stones. This was once the greatest city in the Americas, a place of art, science, religion, and trade. A place built not by kings, but by cooperation. A place where people from across a continent came together to build something greater than themselves. And then it fell. Teotihuacan teaches us something profound, that even the mightiest civilizations are fragile. They are not destroyed only by enemies, but by drought, by hunger, by inequality, by the loss of shared purpose. Sometimes they collapse not with a roar, but with a whisper, a slow unraveling until one day they are simply gone. We like to imagine our cities are permanent, that our towers and highways will last forever. But someday, they too will be ruins. Someday, people will walk through their empty streets and wonder who we were and why we disappeared. Teotihuacan is silent now. The plazas are empty. The gods are gone. But the stones remain. And in their silence, they speak, not of power, but of impermanence. Listen closely, and you can almost hear them. The city of the gods is gone, but its echo will never fade.